me, Essie Magic, and today I'm going to be sharing my ultimate checklist of my 20 must-haves for your next vendor booth at your next vendor market pop-up. After going to a couple different events now and seeing the differences of them, I'm starting to realize what you do need and what you don't need, and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way of things that were a waste that I didn't need to bring, and then I've also learned lessons of things that I should bring. So let's get right into it. First off, you gotta bring your table and chairs. Most pop-ups do not rent tables and chairs. You're expected to bring your own. There are some that do, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you're expected to bring your own furniture. So make sure you buy a table. Don't be silly like me and get a table that's way too big. I talk about that in my previous videos of how I made a big mistake getting an 8-foot size table. When it's just way too heavy to carry, way too cumbersome. So now I recently actually got a 6-foot table, which seems to be the norm that I'm seeing at events. Most vendors have 6-foot tables. If they need more space than that, they'll have 2 6-foot tables, or a 6 and a 4 and make an L, or even use 2 6 and a 4 to make a U. So most people have some sort of configuration for the 6-foot or smaller size table. It's not as common to see an 8-foot size table unless you have like a double size booth, like a 20 by 10 or something like that. You also want to make sure you bring a chair of some sort or stool. I do stand for most of the day because I find that when I'm standing, I'm just more engaging, and it's easier for me to interact with people. I don't recommend sitting for a lot of periods of time. But there's gonna be down periods where there's just not as many people walking by, so those are good times to take a rest and sit. Most people just bring some sort of foldy chair or a picnic chair or something to use. If you have people at the table with you, helping you out, then you want to have multiple chairs or sitting equipment. Then of course, after the table, what else do you need? A tablecloth. Make sure you have a nice, neat, clean tablecloth. Try to steam it in advance so it's smooth and looks professional, but you have to have a tablecloth. Most events that I've seen actually have it mandatory. Some of them even have requirements of the type of tablecloth you can use. Like there's one that I applied to that said you had to have a fitted tablecloth. So be careful depending on which one you go to, but you definitely need to have a tablecloth to put first so that people don't see that you're using just some sort of foldy picnic table or something. The fitted tablecloths are slightly better because if you are outdoors, they won't blow in the wind. But I like to have a tablecloth that there's room in the back so I can still access it and store things there. So I get one that's pretty heavy, that it won't blow all over if I'm outdoors, but it's still fitted enough that it stays down and I can access everything that I need. Then of course you need your displays. That is honestly one of the biggest parts of your booth. Your display gives the whole vibe. It sets the tone for it. And there are actual recommendations that say that the more depth and levels you have to your table, the more people's eyes are interested in your booth, especially if you have things that are at eye level, right? It just looks more interesting when people see things of different heights and depth on your table. So you want to make sure you have some really cool displays and shelves of ways to store your item. If you sell clothing, then you'll probably have racks and things like that as well. Another thing that's important to have is ways to display your prices and your price tags. That's one thing that I learned also, is that people respond better when they don't have to ask you. And it's also some advice I've gotten from a lot of like some videos I've watched, where people feel less comfortable to ask a price, but if you just list it out, they're more likely to just feel comfortable, look at it, and then decide right then and there without that pressure of having to verbally ask you. And also when you have your price tags out, it makes it so that you don't have to talk to every customer. So for example, I have these price tags. This is one that I put together. There we go. So these are the price tags that I use, and they have all of my descriptions on them. Because my brand is empowering jewelry for women, a lot of people buy it because of the inspiring messages on them, because of the inspirations behind them. So I like to include the inspirations for the jewelry pieces on the table, and then also the price. And then I put them on these little easel stands that I bought, and then they just sit on the table like that in a little cute way. However you want to display your prices is up to you, but I definitely recommend displaying it. I've had people buy things, even I like barely spoke to the person, but somehow when I was talking to somebody else, they were looking, reading, and they just decided to buy. They're like, oh, can I get this? And it honestly makes it easier for you as well. The next thing you want to have is some sort of decor for your table. So separate from your displays, you want to set the kind of vibe for the lifestyle that your product represents. It just raises the level of elegance of your table, and I find that it's just much more attractive to the type of people who actually, you know, have money to buy. I honestly have gotten so many compliments on my table display. People are like, oh, it's so pretty and all that, and it just attracts people. And so some of the decor that I use on my table is eucalyptus, fake eucalyptus. These are them, which I got on Amazon. And all I did was I bought a whole bunch of bundles, and I just cut them. I cut them into little pieces that I could put all over the table. And I've gotten so many compliments. On top of that, I made sure that it also fits the theme of my brand and my branding. That's another thing. Don't just put random things on your table that are pretty. You want to make sure it's cohesive with your brand. The eucalyptus flower actually represents, well, actually, is it a flower, or some people call it leaves? I'm not sure. But I know that it represents strength, protection, abundance, prosperity. And so it fits my theme of empowering jewelry for women, because it also represents empowerment, right? So that was important too in my decor. Like, all that kind of thought goes into my presentation to fit the vibe, the lifestyle that I'm trying to present with my brand. I also have these pampas grass. It's all fake, by the way. These are fake. This is another thing I put on my table. These represent, again, have to have some sort of symbolism. I thought about which ones would have a symbolism, and these also represent abundance and prosperity. So again, matching my empowering theme, and so that is part of my table decor. The next thing you want to make sure you have is some sort of business card. I've actually had quite a lot of people ask me for a business card, and I've actually gained followers on social media from people who didn't buy just from finding me at a show. So at least it's another consolation that if people don't buy from you, you're actually still getting brand awareness from them getting your business card, following you on social, and who knows, maybe they might follow you in the future. And again, it's something that allows for less talking, because it is very exhausting at these booths to have to talk to every single customer. So if you're busy with one, somebody could be reading it somewhere else and, you know, helping to get the message across without you verbally telling the person. So now we're gonna get into more of the technical items. Another thing that you wanna have is some sort of card reader or way to take money. I have an actual card reader. This is from Shopify, but you'll also see the little square readers as well. You can get those little square ones that attach to your phone. The reason why I didn't get the square one is, one, because when you use Shopify, it's harder to connect your inventory to the square one. You have to like manually do a lot of things that don't automatically connect. And so I didn't want to have to create that extra work of having to then go and manually check my inventory and do all that things and line everything together. I wanted a system that would automatically, when I put a sale through, go into my Shopify and minus that inventory, that piece of inventory. And then another thing is that the actual square version, like the little square that you attach to your phone by Shopify, which would be the competitor of the one by Square Reader, it had very bad reviews. There was lots of reviews saying that, you know, it's not reliable. One moment it works, one moment it doesn't work. And I didn't want to have to deal with that. I want something that works and is reliable. So I didn't get that one. This one is more expensive, I will warn you, but I think it's worth it. For me too, I also felt like it would add a little bit more higher level of like, oh, I'm an established kind of brand type of thing, or a little bit more professionalism. It might not, I don't know, but it was more about the reliability factor. So, which is why I got this Shopify card reader that takes debit, credit, and tap card and all that. And of course, with that, you need money for change in case someone wants to pay with cash. So far, not one person, but again, by the time you're seeing this video, I would have been to only 4 events. But so far, not one person has wanted to pay with cash. Everybody wanted to pay with card or tap. But I know in some place, it could be also an LA thing, but I know there are situations where people do want to pay with cash. So make sure you have some change available. 5s and 10s are usually best. Another thing you want to have is some sort of sign that actually says what sort of payment you accept. Although it's not mandatory, it is good to know, for people to know, because there are some other vendors who only accept cash, for example, or who only accept Venmo. So that is something that sometimes buyers could be worried about, is, you know, they don't know that you actually accept a debit or credit cards. But if they do know that, they might be like, oh, I have that, and decide to buy. So definitely something you want to have at least on hand or on the side. You know, it doesn't have to be so visible, but it's something that's good. So again, people don't have to ask you questions unnecessarily. They can kind of see it for themselves. The next thing that's really, really important, goes hand in hand with the card reader for taking card, is some sort of Wi-Fi or hotspot. Most events that I'm finding, either from going to it or from just reading about it online, I've researched like 20 different market events at this point, they do not provide any sort of Wi-Fi or electricity. So you want to make sure that you have your own kind of way to have a hotspot to connect your card reader to. I use this one that I bought from Best Buy, which creates a little hotspot. I'll show it up close on the screen. And you just do monthly pay as you go, and it creates a hotspot that you can connect your card reader to and connect your phone to. I could also create a hotspot on my phone, but I find that the one on my phone isn't as fast as I would like it to be. Whereas with this one, you can actually upgrade or downgrade depending on your needs and speed. So it gives you a little bit more options when you have this one that allows you to. And it wasn't expensive, it was only 50 bucks. And then you go on and you buy the credits for like $15, and it's pay as you go. So when I am going to events, I set it up. I'm about to register a new one because I have one coming up this weekend. And it's been great. It's been super reliable. You just charge it before you go and you're good to go. It also doesn't hurt to have it just in case, you know, you want to use your laptop or something, or iPad or something while you're there, if you have somebody with you. And then of course, with something like your hotspot, you also then need a power source, right? For your technology. I always charge everything in advance, but you never know, something could run out of power. Maybe you were rushing, you didn't have a chance. So you need some sort of power source or power bar. I use this Jackery one that I got, which is the cheapest one actually. Normally, Jackeries are for like camping and things like that, RVs, and they can be super expensive. They can be like the really expensive ones to power like an SUV or one of those things can be like $1,000. This was under $100 for much less use. It doesn't have the actual like plug, like the type from like a wall, but it does have the USB and USB-C, which is pretty much all I need for my purposes. And it's perfect. It lasts up to 12 hours, I believe. And you don't have to keep recharging it. If you go to an event and you don't end up using it, it's still charged and ready to go for the next one. I know people who use these for just in case the electricity goes out in their home. So this has been super useful, gives me peace of mind as well, that if I run out of power for something else, I have this. And I actually did, at the show that I went to, the very first pop-up I went to, this actually lost power at one point. And so I plugged it in here and I was good to go. Another thing that is important to have, well, okay, this one really depends on the event that you're going to, but I find it's one of those things that you probably will need at some point if you are serious about going to a lot of these. That is some sort of lighting. So I use these sort of table lights. I actually want to get 2 more because I feel like even these are not bright enough, and these are battery powered, similar to the hotspot and other things I was talking about, so I make sure I charge it before I go. But again, this is kind of nuanced to your industry. I sell jewelry. It's nice when it's lit up and shiny and sparkly, so it's good to have lighting. Oh, I just turned it on by accident. So it's good to have lighting for your table, so that way your jewelry lights up. But maybe you're in a type of industry that doesn't need it. However, what I will say is that a lot of oops, I keep accidentally turning them on. Okay, let me turn these off. Let me put it to the side. Oh, and these have different levels, by the way. It's like different, look. Yeah, see, it's like a colder, then a warmer light. Anyway, these are super cool. Okay, I'm gonna put these away. What I will say though is that if you are someone who's going to be going to these markets a lot, you probably will find that you do need it at some point, at least for the events that sometimes dip into the nighttime or when it gets dark. Maybe, you know, most of your events are in the daytime, so you don't need it, and maybe you don't have something as shiny or spotlighty as jewelry, so you don't need it for that purpose. But there are some markets that do start to get dark by, you know, 6, 7 p.m., depending on if we're in daylight savings or not. And so you might want to have it on your canopy or your tent or whichever as an option, just in case. So again, I said this one is nuanced depending on your type of industry. It is possible that you could just avoid certain events that have that will require lighting, like anything the time will go into the night or even night events altogether. But I think it's something that if you do plan to go to a lot of them, you will run into situations where maybe you want some lighting. So just look out for that. Still on the topic of technology and power, the next thing on the list are cords to actually plug things in, right? So if it turns out that you do need to charge, you need to have something to charge it, and so making sure you have your cord so that you can plug it in is super, super important. Another thing is that there will every once in a while be an event that does have electricity. Like I said, most do not provide a power source, but if it does, you also want to make sure that you have a cord for, this is an electrical, why isn't the word coming to my head? Extension cord. So all your cords, you should still have them. This to actually charge things. And then if you are going to a show that does have a power source, make sure you bring an extension cord. But again, keep in mind, every show is, you know, they can be different, right? So some shows you might need it, some you might not, but I'm just kind of giving you the general ones of like where in most cases you will need to have a power source and these kinds of things. The next thing you want to bring is some sort of garbage bin or trash bin. I think the first few shows I just brought something like this. I have now replaced this with a smaller one, but most cases there won't be any sort of garbage that is nearby where you wouldn't have to like leave your booth to go and throw something out. So if you have, you know, you're eating something, you have a paper, something you want to throw it out, it's good to have your own little garbage bin to put things there, and then you dump the whole thing out later. Again, you probably won't, especially if it's an outdoor one, you might experience where you don't see a garbage bin for a while. So definitely have a garbage bin to put your stuff in for the day and then dump it out by the end of the day. With cleanliness also comes paper towel. I find that having paper towel as a backup just in case is important. It could be something as simple as your coffee spills or your water spills. Having something to clean up as an emergency is really good. I've had something spill once. It was just drops, but it was good to have the paper towel. I also, as you've seen in my previous videos, I've been running late. So sometimes I get to events and I'm sweating from like racing around and hurrying up to set up, that I'm like sweating, and I've literally used the paper towel to be like on my face. So I think it's something that's useful to have. Another thing that I think is good is some sort of kit with tools. So, and by tools I mean things like scissors, tape. I have this bag here that I keep that kind of stuff in. So in here I have duct tape, I have this kind of tape, I have string or rope, I have scissors, one for a big thing to cut, one for a little thing to cut. I have hand sanitizer, I have a couple other things, pen, paper, in case somebody wants to exchange contact info and maybe you don't have your phone nearby. But This is all super useful stuff because you don't know when something's gonna happen where you have to cut something or tape something. I went to an event recently that was super windy. Thank goodness I had tape with me so I could tape down my price tags. Otherwise, my price tags were all blowing away. So you never know, or the rope, you could end up needing to tie something down. So make sure you have those things with you. Another thing is, and this one is a bit nuanced, but if you sell any sort of clothing, slash apparel or accessories like me, or even makeup, you might want to have a mirror or something that people can use to look at themselves. I have this mirror here. It's actually quite cool because it lights up, but people don't know that, so they don't typically light it up, but it does light up, different shades, of course, whether you want warm or cold or whatever. And it actually, if you turn it around, it can also do the zoom in type, but most people don't use that. I even have the plastic protection so on the other side. But this has literally helped me make sales. Like literally people have looked in the mirror and been like, oh, I look good, you know, they're just, oh, looks great, you know, and then they bought because they were able to see what they look like in the mirror. So definitely good to have some sort of mirror. If you have a clothing business, I've seen people bring full body mirrors before, hat business, it's good to have that with you. Another thing you want to bring is a sign or something that shows your branding. I have a sign that I put on an easel that says bold and empowering jewelry for women. I've definitely had people stop by my booth and immediately see the sign and read the sign. And that got the point across that this is not just regular jewelry. This is something that's empowering and inspiring, and you know, it helps. And what I did is I just put it on an easel. I have this easel. And it actually, believe it or not, the tall easel folds into this small little thing. So I just take it, it's duct tape now, but I just take it apart and it makes this big stand, and I put my sign on it, and it honestly helps people to see my branding, remember me, and know what my business is about by pretty much seeing my elevator pitch right on the sign. So it's a great idea to have something like that. Again, then you don't have to verbally explain everything all the time. Another thing that is, again, kind of nuanced depending on the event you're going to is a canopy and or a umbrella. So far, I've been avoiding events with canopies because I just don't feel like buying it and putting it up. I've been using ones that have umbrellas if it's outdoors, or I've done indoor ones that didn't need any because it's indoors. But what I'm finding is that the majority of events will require at least some sort of umbrella or canopy. I've seen people who just don't bother and they just go without anything and the sun is just shining on them. I don't think it's good for most businesses though, because a lot of businesses, sun can damage your products. So I recommend, you know, preparing to have a canopy or an umbrella for your outdoor event. Again, you could maneuver to kind of avoid those, especially if you're in a big city where they have a lot of these events. But if you're in a smaller city, you will likely end up in situations where you end up outdoors. So it's good to have it for sun protection and also for your consumers to have a good experience when they're looking at your table. They're not worried about the sun and the wind and things blowing things. They can focus on your product and buy. So definitely. And then there's some events that it's like a requirement, like they literally write it in the terms, like must have an umbrella, and a lot of them will even regulate the color of it. They'll be like must have a white umbrella or a cream umbrella, a neutral canopy, because they have this aesthetic for their show and their marketplace that they want it to fit. So you'll find a lot of these strict rules for some of them, at least maybe it's an LA thing, I don't know, but you'll find some of these strict rules as well with them. So make sure you kind of pay attention to that and you plan to have some sort of, you know, ceiling shelter thing for your setup. And then with that, of course, you're gonna need a weight to hold it down, right? If you have an umbrella, you don't want it blowing away. I saw one lady start blowing away the other day and everybody ran to like catch it. So make sure you have the weight that you need for it. Whether it's a canopy, you'll need weights for the corners. If it's an umbrella, you'll need a weight for the main pole in the middle. So make sure you have weights. And there are special weights for those. I'm not talking about weights that you lift at the gym. I'm talking about weights that are especially for those types of tents and canopies and things like that. Another thing that is super important that will save your back and save your energy is some sort of cart or wagon for loading your stuff in and loading your stuff out. If you are carrying things in your arms, you are going to be tired. You will not be able to do this type of lifestyle for long. You should have some sort of cart or wagon to easily load your items. From what I've seen, every single one of these vendors has a cart or wagon, something with wheels on it. I also use this schlepping bag from this brand called Hulkin, and I literally just throw things in this bag on wheels, and then I also have a cart as well. If you're doing these events by yourself is important. Even if you have people, it's just too damaging on your body to be just lifting things. So make sure you have some sort of transport for your load in and your load out that has wheels on it. The next thing that you want to bring with you is some sort of storage for your products. So literally I started making sure I was kind of keeping things on the table so I don't have to bend down to get things. And I have these little drawers that are perfect. They fit under my table risers, under my displays, but still on the table. They're little drawers that I can just pull things out easily. And it's been amazing. You will find the storage that works for you. Some people are able to just keep their stuff on the table. Like what they have on the table is what they sell. But because mine is jewelry, you know, you usually have some sort of display piece there, and then you keep the actual one you're gonna sell somewhere else. So that's why I have them in little drawers. And then the very last thing on my list is the most obvious thing of all. That is your products and your packaging. After all we just talked about, do not forget your products at home. Do not forget your packaging at home. That is what you're selling. That is your bread and butter. I've seen videos where people were like, oh my gosh, I forgot this thing at home, and they send somebody to go get it, and luckily they have someone to go get it for them. But definitely remember to bring your products. You will learn over time how much of each product you should bring to a particular event depending on the amount of people going. For me, so far, based on the traffic I've seen at each event, I bring 5 of each item. But that's just for me. Again, you know, I'm still exploring a lot of these and seeing how things go. So, but for me, I bring 5 of each. I have jewelry though, which is very easy to transport. And then what I just do is put them in the drawers that I mentioned. As a bonus, the last thing I'm gonna say not to forget are some of those items that are very specific to your business. Everybody has them. They have things that, depending on the type of business you have, you will need it or not. For me, that's ring measurement sizes, finger measurement sizes. So in the jewelry business, people have different size fingers for rings. So I always bring these things that can measure different rings, finger sizes. And then I also have this to measure the actual rings themselves, because sometimes people try them on and they forget what size it is. They just put on it, so you can put it on this and then be like, oh, that's a size 7, that's a size 6. So don't forget to bring the little nuanced things that are specific to your business or industry that you'll probably need, because there will be stuff that's specific to just your type of business. Another example of that would be a fitting room. If you sell clothing, sometimes people bring portable fitting rooms that they look like kind of a standing tent. So based on your business, assess the things that are specific for you. And that is it for my ultimate checklist for your vendor preparation, for your marketplace pop-ups. I hope this list helps you out. If I missed anything, because I am not perfect, put it in the comments below. Everything you add, any sort of tips that you add in the comments will definitely help somebody who's looking at this video. So I recommend and welcome you to leave any comments or added suggestions or advice in the comments below. If you thought this video was helpful, it always helps me when you give it a thumbs up, so please do that for me. And of course, subscribe. You know, if you want to keep getting tips like this and you want to keep, you know, growing with me and my brand and coming along with me on my journey, I welcome you to subscribe as well. So with that being said, I've been Essie Magic. Make sure you keep being magic. Bye!